car video. All right, this is where we are right now. It's been a little hard, supporting this team the last couple of weeks. I think everyone felt it was a draw, right? We played Bournemouth, it was a draw. Obviously, they didn't play well. The team didn't deserve to win, but it wasn't a loss, right? But, that's one win in 7 matches. Crazy amount of draws, right? We lost to Chelsea. We drew with Liverpool, drew with Brentford. Probably should have won all 3, or not should have, but could have won all 3. Never looked like they were going to beat Bournemouth. But the conversation right now is, it's all the manager's fault, right? People are talking about the players. Yeah, the players aren't playing well enough, but they're saying the manager isn't setting up the team the right way. But honestly, what does that mean? One of the conversations is, we have better players than Brentford. We have better players than Bournemouth. We should beat these teams. Yeah, that's true in some, extent, but having better players isn't, necessarily reflected in the head-to-head matchup. A team can be a bad match for another team based on style of play and the composition of the players and the circumstances of the moment. The way you show you have better players is, you're ahead of the other team in the table. Over a 38-game season, you're able to win more points or accumulate more points than the other team does, not just because you beat them in the head-to-head matchup. This isn't, WWE or boxing or MMA. There's no belts, right? If there was a belt, Aston Villa just took it off of Arsenal. Is Aston Villa the best team in the league? No. Is Arsenal a better team than Aston Villa? For sure. I mean, we beat Villa twice this year. Are we better than Villa? Would anyone honestly say that? So this thing about having better players, right, that doesn't matter in that matchup, the head-to-head matchup. If you look at a couple years ago, Ali beat Pep. We beat City 3 times out of 4 in one season. I think I'm getting that right. I know we beat him 3 out of 4, in a row at one point. But, Pep couldn't beat us. He actually changed the way he structured, I think, his attacking shape, the way he structured his back line when they were in possession, I think directly because of United, right? We would sit deep in counter. We'd have a deep back line, Fred McTominay, that double 6 pairing, mopping up, and then kicking ahead to Bruno, and then Bruno playing in, the 3 forwards in front of him. It was Rashford, Martial, and then Dan James or Greenwood. And literally, City used to attack and they'd keep 2 center backs back, and we would just throw 3 fast guys at them. And then we would end up scoring on the counter, and they couldn't deal with it. And we would do that, and we'd go up 1-0, 2-0, and then our game plan wouldn't change. They'd feel more pressure, and they'd be worried about losing the ball, and then getting countered on again. So again, nothing changed. But it did change for Pep, obviously, because, he changed and he has 3 guys back there. Instead of, throwing everybody forward, he doesn't play with attacking fullbacks anymore. He plays with a back 4 of like 4 center backs, and then he'll push John Stones into midfield, and that back 4 becomes a back 3. And then there's, 2 kind of DMs at that point. It's Rodri and then Stones, but those guys can go push forward a little bit, and the other guy will stay back. He's playing a WM, which is funny because we do that sometimes too. But yeah, I'm getting off topic here. The point is that, we, our talent level, our roster level, the quality of players we have, that's not necessarily indicative of whether or not we're going to beat a team or not. Now, if there's arguments against how Ten Hag's setting up the team, sure. If there's arguments about how, our attacking play looks and how we build up, yeah, 100%. I'm on board with all that, right? It hasn't been good enough. But, injuries aside, and injuries is a big part of it, I don't think you could discount it. It sounds like an excuse. Nobody wants to keep saying that, but like not having a left back for 80% of the season, not having, a striker for half the games. We haven't had Martial or Højlund forever, not forever, but in many games this season. Or we're playing a 20-year-old who played, 19 times in Serie A last year, right? Like, we don't have an established striker. This isn't a complete team. This isn't a team where we're like, Ten Hag has all his pieces and he can't figure it out. This is a team where, Ten Hag is missing puzzle pieces. Like, you can't complete a jigsaw puzzle if someone takes, 20 of the pieces and throws them in the garbage, right? It's not going to look right compared to a less sophisticated, less complicated puzzle that's easy to put together. Okay, that was a lazy analogy, not the greatest, but you know what I mean, right? Imagine the NFL, right? You're like, okay, we don't have any cornerbacks, so we're just going to put safeties at cornerback. No, it's not the same. At that level, right, the guys are athletes. Maybe they can play there in a pinch, but, they haven't been training that way for, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, whatever it is. The angles are different. The responsibilities are different. The reads are different. You're in a different part of the field. You have to figure it out. Lindelof and Amrabat have played left back this year probably as much as anybody else. Right? Wan-Bissaka is not a left back. Reguilon, we had him for a minute. He got hurt. And we literally didn't have a left back. We had to play Lindelof and Amrabat. Nobody ever talks about that. Because they say, we don't want to make excuses. They're professional players. Great. You find a professional band, right? An orchestra. And you tell me, okay, we don't have any, tuba player. Let's get a guy who plays the violin to go there. Our whole first violin chair, they're all hurt. Let's get the guys from percussion over and they'll play violin, right? I know it's not the exact same thing. It's probably, violin to viola, right? But even then, or like to a cello, but even then, you're like, it's a string instrument. They should know the basics, but it's not going to be the same. That's a good comparison. So we can't just say like the injuries aren't a thing and that's not hurting this team and how they're set up. Now, what you can, I think, blame Ten Hag for is the build-up, right? The way we play, the way we defend and press. We have center backs that don't fit this pressing style. And you could say, Brighton, they press high, or City press high. I mean, those teams also keep the ball very well. We don't have the roster or the players to keep the ball well. That's another argument. But, the press the way that we want to press, like Liverpool, the way City do sometimes, and City have, Kyle Walker back there, bailing people out. I think Akanji and Nathan Aki both have good pace. Diaz is not super fast, but again, he's not back there by himself with another center back having to, run out and cover Dan James. He's got, Gavardiol or, Nathan Aki, not that far away from him, able to either step up and try to, snuff out danger or to get back and help. And then he's got Kyle Walker's pace to sweep up. But, we don't have the center backs for that. And because we don't have the center backs and we don't have a Kyle Walker, then we have to play our center backs deeper than they should for this system. And again, yes, that puts the center, midfielders in a ton of space. It puts guys like Casemiro, who, by the way, looks cooked. His legs look done. He's in a ton of space. He doesn't look good in that situation. And then guys like, Maguire and Johnny Evans, who I think have had good seasons, and Varane, who I think also has been pretty good when he's healthy, although it does look like he's lost a step or two. And I thought that at the beginning of the season when it was him and Martinez, and they both didn't look right. But, those guys, to not get cooked every single time there's a counter, they have to play deeper so they can get back to the box and protect. So Ten Hag had a choice. He said, to himself probably, am I going to set up in a mid block? Am I going to press, deeper? Or am I going to continue to implement my system and progress the team and teach this style from the first team to the youth team and, try to play a style where, the team presses high, they try to win the ball in the opponent's box, they try to turn them over high and then create chances that way and play a high line? Or does he say, hey, even though at every level below this one we're playing a high line, because we need to win matches, we're going to play a lower line. We're going to sit back and counter. We're going to, we're going to, play a mid block. Is that what Ten Hag is supposed to do? Where was everyone praising Ange when he had all those injuries and he's, getting red cards and he's still playing a high line? And everyone's like, oh, I love how brave he is, right? Like, why are people praising that when Spurs are getting waxed, but United are not, playing sort of a cohesive style? They're extending the pitch. They're playing this basketball style. They're giving up a ton of shots, which I don't love. But, in a lot of those games, and it's not been the same lately, we were giving up, or the United were giving up low percentage shots. Yeah, they were giving up 20, 25 shots, but not a lot of them were on target, and none of them were big chances, and the XG was low. There were matches where you would go back, and again, like I said, this has changed recently, but the XG of the other team was still below ours, even though they outshot us. And people complained, oh, it's Brentford, or it's, whatever, Sheffield, or whoever it is, and they're shooting more than United. But the quality of the chances were bad, and Ten Hag was rolling the dice, and I get it, but it's looked ugly. But as a fan base, can we be a little bit more sophisticated and understand what we think he's trying to do here? We know the player development, hasn't been great the last couple of years. We know the recruitment has been terrible. I know people are giving Ten Hag a lot of stick for signing Amrabat when the scouts didn't like him. Right, the same scouts who said they didn't think, Kamavinga was good enough to play for this team. The same scouts who Ali said didn't think Haaland was good enough, right? Like, what have the scouts done in the last 10 years where they deserve all the credit of, oh, we should listen to the scouts? How dare Ten Hag not have his own ideas, right? And I know it hasn't worked out for Amrabat. It hasn't worked out this season for Casemiro, for Eriksen. I know Antony hasn't been great for the entire season and a lot of last year. But like, Højlund was good. Martinez was good. Malacia was fine, right? Like, Onana started, poorly, but he's come good. And do you honestly believe if we have kept De Gea around, like, it would have been much different? Like, do you guys forget how bad De Gea was towards the end of last year? Is there a reason why De Gea is still on the couch right now? I don't think it's by choice. I think it's because the game has moved on. And Ten Hag has been trying to progress the team. But we have too many players that aren't progressive. We have too many players that can't play the style that he wants to play. I don't know if Rashford can. I know he had a great season last year, but is that something that, it was just a one season, and because we played a little bit more counterattacking last year, it was different? Or is he just not a Ten Hag player? Is he so bad at holding onto the ball, he doesn't go at people anymore? He needs that space to counter into. He's not great in tight spaces. Is Bruno that guy? I think Bruno and Rashford, honestly, could potentially be there. And I know this is another excuse. This squad was, beat to hell. They played so many games last year, very little break in the summer. And, every team that plays a lot of games has some kind of hangover. And because of our squad, players that should have rested and should have played less minutes this year, they've had to play, nonstop. I'm acknowledging that. But, Rashford and Bruno, are they players that can play in this style of system? Casemiro, obviously done. McTominay, scored a bunch of big goals. Casemiro, too, this year. Those two guys probably, combined would be our top scorer. Maybe not, but that's not what they're here for. They can't hold the ball. They can't pass. They can't control the game. McTominay used to be known for, running around kicking people. He wasn't great defensively, but he gave energy. Now he's like just an attacking midfielder who looks to get in the box, doesn't do much else. These are not the players that fit Ten Hag's system, right? Delo is the only guy, or not the only guy, he's probably the only healthy guy, from previous regimes who was a, player who played a lot, who really fits Ten Hag's style. And because we haven't had another fullback for like half the season, and we haven't had a left back for 80% of the season, he's been run into the ground, and he's starting to show signs of it. We're relying on teenagers. Kumbuala, Mainu, Garnacho. Would these guys be playing this much if there was Man City? Or, Liverpool, maybe Liverpool because of the injuries. But if this was Real Madrid, would they be relying on these guys? I know Barca has played the youth, but they had to do it because they signed a bunch of trash players because they don't have any money. And they're still trying to dig their way out of that, hole that they put themselves into. But let's be real, Willy Kumbuala, he's played a great against Liverpool. He's looked decent this year. He started really slow against Bournemouth, and I thought he came on late. But this isn't a guy who should be playing major minutes for Manchester United. He's a guy who, should be playing bit parts right now. And then, at the end of the year, we find a loan for this guy where he can go and he can get major minutes and get that experience and then come back, an improved player, someone who has seen a lot of situations and knows what to do when he's, put in the first team, right? Even Arsenal, they bought Saliba and they loaned him back to, the league, the French league. And he got a bunch of minutes there and he came back and he hit the ground running. I'm not saying Kumbuala is going to do that. He's going to go play for a year and come back and be a first teamer. But that's what we need to do with this kid. Not, throw him into the deep end and, potentially ruin his confidence. He looks like a confident kid. Like I said, he bounced back against Bournemouth. I give him a lot of credit there. But, I don't want to see this kid, play a bunch of games in a team that's struggling, and then he starts to make a couple mistakes and his confidence gets shaken. I hope he stays, solid. He seems like he has the right attitude. But again, this is not a situation where, United needs to be relying on a kid like this. Our bench, we had, 17-year-olds, 3 of them, I think. So not a lot of people Ten Hag could go to try to make a change, to change the match, change the game. So I don't know. I mean, what are we doing here? I'm serious. I know the manager, not everything is right. Not everything is going well. I don't agree with everything he does. He's a little stubborn and, the results don't look good. But, we talked about patience this year. We talked about, is this something that, we're going to be patient with this manager, or we're going to follow the same structure the last couple of years where we fall out of the Champions League, we fire the manager, we start over, we reset. Not with the manager, not with the players, but with the manager. And then the new manager has to manage a bunch of players from a bunch of other managers, have trouble moving people on, and then things go well for a little bit, and then they go sour, and that manager gets fired as well. Feels like we're back on that cycle again. And I don't feel like, the team has quit on this manager. They're still working hard. I feel like the fans aren't letting them quit on some level, and they understand that. But, they still are working for this manager. I don't feel like the dressing room is, completely given up on him. The results haven't been great, but again, we're not losing. We've drawn three of our last 4 matches with the loss to Chelsea. We were winning in extra time in 3 of those matches, right? A little bit more composure, and that could have been 3 wins before this Bournemouth match. Could you imagine the conversation if we had won those? Ten Hag, masterclass. Ten Hag figured it out. Ten Hag has this team fighting. I know people still would complain about the results, but Are we just going to start over? People say, yeah, the new regime, we're doing the right things. We don't know for sure that Ineos is going to change anything. We don't know for sure that what they do is going to be successful. Are we going to turn on Ineos in 2 years where it's like, oh, they had their chance. They signed these players. The players weren't good. So, Ineos out. Dan Ashworth out. Omar Barada out. Like, I know that doesn't really happen, because the players are the people that the fans see as much or more than anyone. The manager, the team, the product, they're the face of this organization. And the executives, they're kind of behind the scenes. You don't get as much opportunity. You don't get as much opportunity, to complain about those people. But at the same time, we don't know it's going to work out with them. So even if they fire Ten Hag, they bring in their guy. Who's to say their guy is the right guy? Who's to say the next 3 people they hire is the right guy? Right? We're just going to keep... Who's to say that they will be able to do what other regimes haven't been able to do and, drastically reshape the roster without having to deal with, without having to move people on for free or let their contracts expire, right? Because that's like usually how we make our big changes. We let a bunch of contracts expire and we shift people on for pennies of the dollar, right? I think we should give Ten Hag a chance under the new regime. I think we should be a little more patient. If you look at Sir Alex, I know it's a different area. You look at Alex Ferguson, he finished 3rd, 2nd, 11th, 13th. He would be fired in this day and age. He would have been fired. Right? Like the greatest manager of all time, at least, in Premier League history, probably in, football history, but, club history, whatever, from a success standpoint for sure with United, and also the fact that he won a European trophy with Aberdeen. Like, that guy would have been fired. He would not have been given a chance. And from what I understand, the fans turned on him multiple times. And if they had gotten him out when they turned on him, then they would have missed out on Champions Leagues, league titles, FA Cups, all kinds of trophies. If they had said, you know what, get him out of here. He doesn't know what he's doing anymore. Let's bring someone new in. Chelsea's on their 4th manager or their 5th manager? Tuchel, Potter, Lampard. Didn't they sack Lampard? Did he make it to the end of the season? They might have brought somebody in interim. If they didn't, whatever. And then now they have Pochettino. And yeah, they played well last week, but they're inconsistent. Cole Palmer's playing awesome. He's got 20 goals. He's got 7 in 2 games in his last 3 games. He got 3 against us, 4 against Everton. 13 goals is nothing to sniff at, but like, he's not Ollie Watkins. He's not Holland. He had a crazy purple patch in the last week. More power to him. You deserve it. You take the shots. His 3rd goal against us was a deflection. And the other 2 were penalties, right? Like, come on. I just think, we're doing us a disservice. We're doing ourselves a disservice if we just, bin this manager and start over. Because we're relying on that pipe dream of, things will be better if. There's always a savior. Things will be better if we just played Donny van de Beek. Things will be better if we just played Pellistri, right? Things will be better if we just brought in, De Zerbi or, Thiago Mata or whoever. You know what I mean? Like, look at De Zerbi, he coached Brighton last year. They had Potter. Potter was good for that team. He went to Chelsea. It was terrible. He couldn't handle the pressure. The whole thing fell apart around him. Brighton has a great recruitment system. They recruit the same style of players. They bring in managers that they think can, manage that style of player as well. That's what Brighton are doing. And, they got Europe this year. He did great last year. How have they done this year? They haven't done great, right? Like, they haven't done well. They don't have no talent. I know they sold a bunch of players, but they have a talented roster. They have De Zerbi, this amazing coach. They don't have our injury problems where they're, shoehorning players into positions they don't normally play. Why isn't he tearing up the league? Thiago Motta, I like him. I watched Bologna a couple times, but they play exactly the same way we play. They play a high press. They try to be very direct. They play it into their striker, into Xerxes, and he likes to play other guys in. There's some combinations that look better than ours, but I think it's the players that they have. Not that they're better players than the United's players, but they're more suited to the system. I think if he came in, you'd see the exact same system that Ten Hag plays. Maybe a couple better combinations. Maybe Ineos is able to get him some players that fit his system and we look a little bit better. But if you're complaining about Ten Hag ball, you're going to be seeing the same thing with him. So I don't know. Do you want Southgate or Potter or one of those guys? I don't know. I think we give the manager another season. I think we buy players that fit the system. I think we move on players that are old or don't fit or aren't good enough. And, if we get some of these healthy, I've been saying this all year, but if we get some players back like Malacia, I think fit the system well. Luke Shaw, Martinez, I think that, Luke Shaw and Martinez played, together against West Ham, and the team looked really good. And then they both, got hurt or had to come off because of minutes restriction, and then we look bad again, right? If we can get a right center back who is mobile and is good on the ball, a Tadibo, that type of player, then I think the team looks better. If we have options at left back and right back and we can rotate and the fullbacks aren't, getting run into the ground, then I think we look better. If we have options on the wing, if we're not playing Rashford just because we have no one else, right? I know what you say. We have Ahmad. We have Anthony on the bench. People calling for Anthony now. Ahmad, give him a chance for sure. But what? We don't see what's going on in training. He went to Scotland 2 years. I know he was good last year at Sunderland, but he went to Scotland 2 years ago and he couldn't get off the bench. He started the first game. He scored in the first game. And 3 games later, he couldn't get off the bench. We don't know what's going on with this guy, right? We don't know if he's good or not in training. And we don't know, he came on and the team looked better and he followed instructions better than Garnacho did. But, I don't know. We need top-level players. And, he scored that great goal versus Liverpool. Give this kid a chance for sure. By the end of the year, we need to see more of him so we know what we have. But at the same time, complaining that, he's not going to save everything. He's not going to solve all our problems. Taking Rashford out and putting Garnacho or on the left, or, taking Garnacho and Rashford out and playing Anthony and Ahmad, that's not going to magically turn us into a good team. Mason Mount, he should play more. I think this is, I've been saying this for a little bit. So I think we missed Fred a lot because we had two midfielders last year. We had Casemiro, Eriksen, Bruno, and then Casemiro, Fred, Bruno. Casemiro, Eriksen, Bruno was 2 6s and a 10, with Eriksen sometimes getting up. Casemiro, Fred and Bruno almost played 2 8s. Bruno still got forward. Fred pushed up too, but Fred was so good at closing down and covering space and breaking up play that midfield was almost our best midfield, in my opinion, because it allowed us to play that high pressing style that we've been trying to play. And Fred would get up there, win the ball back, play a bad pass, lose it, turn it over, run up, tackle the guy he lost the ball to, and then play Rashford in or play Bruno in. And I think Mount wasn't the Eriksen replacement. I think he was the Fred replacement. And I think, the intention was he was going to come in we were going to play those 2 8s. It was going to be Mount and Bruno, but Casemiro's legs have gone, so he can't really keep up. And then our center backs have lost a step or they're injured. They didn't look right. And then now they can't press up, and the whole thing fell apart. And then Mason Mount got hurt for 4 months. And yeah, we can play Mason Mount in the 10 role and try it that way. But I could see like Ten Hag's vision. If we threw an Amadou Onana back there, or someone else who could play and could cover ground and could sweep up, and we have again a Todibo who's fast and a Martinez, or another, maybe a Brathwaite, I don't know, another fast center back. I actually like Hermosa from Atletico Madrid. I think that guy could play left back and left center back. And I think between the three of them, you go with him, Shaw, and Martinez. He's a little old. He's like 28, going to be 29 in the summer. But if you have those three guys, then I think they could all play those two roles, left back and left center back. And I think, maybe Martinez isn't a left back, but they could rotate, because that's what Ten Hag likes, and his players to be able to rotate, move around. I think those three guys could keep each other fresh and compete. And if Malacia is there and he's good, great, he can also fit in. But I think those guys would all be top level players. This guy plays for Medico, he's good defensively, he's a threat in the box, whatever. But if you could get a little bit of pace at left center back, a little bit more pace at right center back, defensive midfield could cover, we could do that 2 8s pressing, and the team would look better because the shape would be more compact, right? I think that's what he's trying to do. I know the results have not been good. I know the manager ultimately bears the brunt of things going wrong. But let's be more measured. Let's give it, let's see if this could turn around. Because if it doesn't turn around, you're going to sack him anyway. Whatever. Who are we missing out on this summer? I heard Nagelsmann's going back to Bayern. Xabi Alonso, he's staying at Leverkusen. But, he was a scout, so he's not going to United. Who is there that we're going to miss out on this summer? Ineos, it sounds like they're buying players for a specific style anyway. So let's continue. Let's continue down this path. And then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And he could get sacked anyway, or he's gone out of contract for the next summer. But sacking him now, starting over, I don't think it makes sense. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. I've been rambling in the car. I don't know how terrible this looks. I feel like for a thumbnail, everyone's going to run away from this one. I got to find a special thumbnail. But yeah, let me know. Am I crazy? Should we get rid of him at the end of the season? Or should we just let it ride and see how it turns out with, players getting healthy and maybe a better summer and a better regime, and we bring new players in and we have square pegs and square holes, and not center backs and defensive midfielders who are right-footed playing left back. All right, up the Reds.